We're not on there. There we are.
Hey, Tom Galanka is with us
Hey, welcome.
in room 11. You haven't been here for a long time with Representative Gannon and me talking about pensions.
Not since last time.
That's this past summer.
That's what I meant, since this last summer. Yes. So
It's good to see
anyway, welcome.
you. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So you understand what our commission, what our committee, what we do. We're trying to look at all the boards and commissions and working groups and task forces that are set up. And as Tracy well knows, there are over 300 of them in the state. And do they all need to exist? And some are a clear yes, some are a clear no, and some are a little more controversial.
Sure.
So clear as mud. So let's do a quick introduction here so you know who you're talking to.
Yep.
Matt, do you want to start?
Yes, Tom, nice to see you again. This is Matt Kraus. I'm one of the,
How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I'm one of the gubernatorial appointees and I live in Stoneham.
Good seeing you again, Matt.
State Senator Brian Collmore representing the Rutland County residents.
Hey, Brian. Good to see you too.
Good seeing you, Tom.
Morning, Tom. I'm Tracy DeLude. I'm the other gubernatorial appointee, and I also oversee the boards and commissions for the governor.
Hey, Tracy.
Senator Jeanette White, and I represent Windham County.
Hey, Senator.
John Gannon representing Halifax, Whitingham, and Wilmington in Southern Vermont.
And
Good to see you.
last but not least, Rob Leclerc representing Barrytown.
Hey, Rob.
Good morning.
Good morning. So should VPIC continue to exist? Now that we've just made some great changes to it?
And a yes or no answer will take care of that. We can move on.
Should we exist? What an interesting question. Of course, I think you should exist. I think I hope we provide service to the state of Vermont. I think I answered the questions in your questionnaire pretty clearly. We've gone through a lot of transitions, and I've appreciated the support of the different Senate and House committees in getting to where we are right now. I think there are changes that we should consider as we evolve, particularly ones in regard to legislative changes as we separate from the treasurer's office, and to consider what the role of investments is from a statewide perspective. Do we want to migrate towards an investment board that handles all statewide investment functions? Do we want to keep it separate and keep it just VPIC related, pension related in VPIC versus having it in the state treasurer's office? But I think that's, as we evolve, we'll probably work with the Senate GovOps committee or the Joint Pension Task Force committee that's been set up to help us work through these issues. But I'm really excited about where we are right now, and I look forward to working with the legislature in the coming year.
Okay.
So just one question, and then I'm going to move that we keep you guys around. Mary Alice McKenzie's term apparently expired in June of 21, and Ronald Plant, as opposed to Robert Plant, who was in Led Zeppelin, his term expired also in June of 21. Have both of those folks been replaced?
Well, that's the governor's appointees, and Ron LaPlante, he has since decided that he's no longer wants to continue because of personal reasons. He said he'd stay on until the governor appoints a new one. Okay. So we're just kind of waiting for new appointments. Mary Alice is to be reappointed. I just don't think we've had the paperwork back from the governor's office. But we will have an opening with Ron Slop.
And I was serious about it, not to short circuit any question.
No, I know.
No, good question.
I'll move to
Are there any questions I think Rob has some questions, and John just had a look on his face that said he might have a question.
Okay.
Tom, I know wholesale change was made here recently around several boards and VPIC in particular, but we do have the opportunity here in this format to make some potentially smaller tweaks to things going forward. Is there anything that you would recommend?
Well, one thing I would recommend is I know the legislature asked us to come up with a comp study, and we're working on that right now. We hired someone to come up with that study, and we're going to have that as a presentation for this January for the legislature. in the legislative language, we still have links to the treasurer's office. And one of those links is the salary of the VPIC chair as 1/3 of the state treasurers. And so we'll probably have some recommendations to cut that link off just because there's no meaningful reason to have that anymore, since we're no longer part of the treasurer's office. Issues, how should we handle budgeting? Right now we're involved with the governor's process, which is somewhat rigid. The pension is kind of complex, and it might be better to have a budget that's linked to maybe a basis point percentage of assets and not to exceed. So it's because it's so fluctuating. We're talking about our internal budget, or our budget for VPIC is about 2.2 million, but we pay about 22 million or so in manager fees. And so having some way to, and I know part of VPIC's process has been to more professionalize VPIC by cutting back on our fees. But when we can't really coordinate our budget a little bit more internally, it's hard to cut back on our external fees. So we end up having a lot of consultant work. We end up having a lot of external Wall Street, payments that maybe balloon up on the manager fee side, but keep our budget in check. So how we do that, I don't know. And I think it's something to discuss with the GovOps committees or the Joint Pension Task Force on how we should proceed going forward. Because last year was our first budget with the governor's staff. So I think we may need some tweaks there. I don't know what specifically they would be, but I know that's something I probably will come forward with.
That's kind of a heavy lift that we wouldn't do
Yeah.
here, but the first suggestion might be something that we could entertain.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I think separating it from taking all the links from this treasurer's office out is something we could do. In this, what will happen is it will have a bill that will go from this committee. Somebody will introduce it, probably Brian and somebody on the House, and it'll go to the GovOps committees, and it can have in there which commissions or should be repealed, but that'll also it can have language in there that actually addresses the statutes that link VPIC to the treasurer's office to change those. It can be in there. And then the GovOps committees would look at that in more depth. But
Sure.
that could, if you know where those are, that would be helpful. And if you can get that to us, we can put that in.
Yeah, I can get the statute. Right,
Okay.
I don't have right in front of me, but I'll have Eric
Yeah.
forward right off to you.
Okay. Thank you.
A question. So Tom, one of the criticisms has been that the individuals or organizations or entities that are responsible for making recommendations and ensuring that those funds are made available may not have done the best job in the past few years. So, there are people who are there are people concerned that their pensions are going to have the funds necessary to pay for those pensions. And the way I read this now, the treasurer is sort of separated from the treasurer's office. So it'll be this entity which you head that will be responsible for making projections and ensuring that those funds are available. Is that accurate?
That is correct. We act as fiduciaries over the trust. So we have all of the different members as well as the elected chair, which is myself.
Yeah.
It is obviously we take it seriously. We have 3 investment staff right now. And that's where I get to the point of, to do this right, those 3 people become critical because you're managing a lot of moving parts, both all the 20 plus different managers, as well as the contracting, as well as working with the different boards themselves. So, the board and commission sets policy, but obviously staff implements that. So Eric Henry is chief investment officer, Katie Green, and then Andy Cook, the 3 staff people, which we rely on tremendously for our work. I would say not to duplicate this. I know there's been some talk that they were talking about having an investment arm within the state treasurer's office in addition to this. And that's why I brought up the idea of well, maybe it should be converted to a state investment board. A lot of states do that, where they house all of their investment because of the question that you're asking. This is such a heavy fiduciary responsibility. You want to make sure you're doing it right, you're doing it consistently across all aspects of state government. So we don't handle for example, the defined contribution plan or the different cash assets that may be invested in a different way. So I'd hate to see us create multiple investment arms of the whole state, but it is a heavy lift. And I think that's why having committed commissioners, as well as make sure we have strict policies and good investment staff, are imperative to be successful going forward.
And I just have one final point to make, and that is, so having all that responsibility and the authority to make recommendations and to ensure that the funds are solvent, et cetera, there comes a point at which you have the authority, but then you have the responsibility, and with that responsibility comes the public concern if what you recommend and what you suggest doesn't come to fruition, or it was inaccurate or dead wrong. Somebody's got to stand up and say, oh, that was me, I did that, or this board did it. And I'm hopeful that, with the responsibility and you have the authority will come you can pat yourself on the back if you do a nice job, or stand up and get some accolades, but by the same token, if it doesn't work, there's accountability that has to be.
Well, and that's why we hire investment consultants. So we have a consultant, RVK, who we have right now, and we fired our prior consultant a couple of years ago for this very reason. We felt we needed better advice, better guidance. The portfolio was a little bit too complex and too expensive, and so it is our duty to make the decisions. But we do hire industry experts. So RVK is one of the top 3 or 4 in the country. They help manage trillions. And so we meet, regularly, and we have set policies in regards to how to manage these funds. So I think we're doing it prudently with a level of risk that is prudent. But we're always revisiting that, and depending on how the state funds the unfunded liability, we take into account, we need cash flow issues that come up in different times because of that. The drain on the state teacher system because of the unfunded causes us a drain of about 10 million or so, 13 million a month. So we have to have the funds available and keep them, more liquid. That can impact performance. So, we take all of these into play, and we try to manage it to the best of our ability. But it is through hiring staff and also hiring investment managers and balancing that internal versus external sort of manager that I think is the key to success.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, as part of our work on pension reform, we set up some checks and balances. Like we created the Pension Oversight Committee, which has oversight over the pensions and its investments, so that the legislature is kept apprised of what's going on. And JFO does do reports on the performance of our pension investments. There's a report, I think, a month ago that came out, which showed that even though we suffered a loss, our loss was not as bad as many of the peers that are out there. So that was good. I mean, I didn't expect to have a huge gain this fiscal year because of the way the markets are. And I mean, Matt, that's one thing that we have to keep in mind. I mean, Tom and his advisors can only do so well. I mean, it's market driven. You can lose money, you can make money. And that's not just because you make a poor investment decision. It can be the war in the Ukraine, which Tom nor his advisors have any control over.
Well, I'll give you the other example, Matt. In regards to a couple of years ago, we sold an investment that we didn't really understand. It was because of our internal staff review that got concerned over it. Our internal managers, or our recommendation, this is the prior manager, had said it was a strong buy. It was called the Allianz Structured Alpha Fund, and we had about $100 million in it. Blue Cross Blue Shield ended up keeping it. We sold it because we thought it was too levered and it was too risky. the managers were selling this as like an umbrella on a rainy day, that it would go up in bad markets and good markets, and you'd consistently have sort of more predictable performance. It went to zero in the COVID crisis, and so we would have suffered $100 million loss. That's the action of groups having the internal control. We've had, by selling it, we prevented a loss, which helps us perform better. Now, this was a couple of years ago, and you don't really see those internal things, but that's really, I think, the benefit of the internal staff and the critical work we do at VPIC.
Well, I will say that because with Tom's help, the legislature, even before we did the pension task force, was able to restructure VPIC in a way that makes it much more responsive and a much better performing body. So I thank you for that, because that was a lot of your input.
Thank you.
And more independent, which is important, because
exactly.
we constantly have this debate in the legislature about the divestment, which is, I think, a very dangerous debate, personally.
Just make more money, that's all. That's a simple.
Our goal is always to beat the assumed rate of return. The question is, can we do it? And we did it 2 years ago. Last year we did. So over time, hopefully we will beat that benchmark and do it prudently without exposing the state to too much risk.
Socially, environmentally.
Oh boy.
Any more questions for Tom? I think that, Brian, you'd already made it.
Well, not officially, but I'm certainly willing to do that now. I'll vote to maintain PIC.
Second.
All right, do we want to take a vote?
Sure.
All right, all in favor of maintaining VPIC?
Aye.
You won.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Don't invest.
Thank you.
Prosper.
Thank you. Good
Thank
luck
you.
with your 300 commissions.
Thank you.
Take care.
Tim, are you joining us? Okay.
Yeah.
We're early, which is great.
Oh, we're a little bit early, but is that okay?
My understanding is 2 of my 3 chairs will be joining. I don't believe Roger Dumas from the East Service is able to make it today.
Okay. Are they on Zoom?
Zoom. I expect Chris Doobie and John Harris to be zooming in at 11 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you have their information? Yeah, if they're available, they can. We're 10 minutes ahead of time, did you say?
Yep.
Yes.
So if they can join us, I hate to start it without them because they're an integral part of those.
Yep.
Although we could start with the retirement, the state employees, because you're not expecting
I'm not expecting Roger.
to join us anyway, so we could start there.
Okay.
Why don't we do that?
Yep.
Okay.
Did you say Beamers?
No, the
First.
state employees.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Why don't we do that? Because we're not expecting anybody there. Okay, great. Okay, so we'll do a quick introduction here so you know who you're talking to.
Start with her so I can.
Okay, all right.
I'm Tracy DeLude. I'm one of the gubernatorial appointees. I'm also overseeing the boards and commissions for the governor.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Jeanette White from Wyndham County.
Hi, Tim. John Gannon, representing Halifax, Whitingham, and Wilmington.
Rob Claire representing Berrytown.
I'm Matt Kraus. I'm the other gubernatorial appointees and I live in Stowe.
Nice to meet you.
Brian Collmore, State Senator from Rutland.
Right, okay, Tim.
I'm Tim Duggan, Director of the Vermont Retirement System.
So our goal, is to look at all the 300 and some boards and commissions and task forces that we have in the state and determine whether they should continue to exist or not. And if they should continue to exist, are there statutory changes that would be helpful to reflect current life as opposed to when they might have been set up 40, 50, 60 years ago? So that's what we're doing. So we're reviewing all of them. And we're going to now review VSTRS.
Research.
VSTRS, yes. Vermont State Employees Retirement Board. Okay. So you want to, and we have
You have we sent in a couple weeks ago, I think, the responses. I hope it was helpful.
Yep.
I did not come with prepared remarks. I mean, I do believe we should maintain the systems governing board. I think without it, well, frankly, I don't know what we do with it, what kind of governance structure we would have. I think one thing that we do periodically, we've done in the past, is we will pick a system to kind of go over the statute and try and identify all of those things that might be outdated. And, there are things in the statute that might be outdated. And you may recall in 2020, just before COVID hit, we had advanced a miscellaneous state retirement bill that made it through the House. Once COVID hit, it was not a must pass. There were pieces of it that I think were passed in a different vehicle, but that's sort of an example of, what we do sort of on a normal course to just scrub and make sure that if something isn't isn't consistent with current practice, we kind of take a look at it and maybe suggest and I actually am, it's funny, thinking about that, I'm dusting it off to kind of see whether and what we might propose for this year, if anything. So, we do that look. I think the board functions well. It's a collegial board. It's not a board that, there's not a lot of split votes on the board, on any of our boards, frankly. Generally, they're very congenial and they operate by consensus. Not sure I have much else other than, to respond to questions. Happy to do so.
would there be any of that legislation that should go in here as cleanup? Any of those statute
So Tim,
changes?
we typically draft a bill on boards and commissions. Sometimes it's to repeal them, sometimes it's to modify the statutes. So this would be potentially one avenue to modify anything that you're suggesting. If you're not prepared, you can do a standalone bill. I mean,
it has been typical in years, at least since I've been working with the treasurer's office, to have a miscellaneous retirement vehicle that moves throughout the session. And, frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if after significant pension reform last year, there might be a NIT-NAT that wants cleanup such that a miscellaneous bill would be reasonable. So I don't have it. I certainly don't have anything prepared, and I want to socialize it with current and future leadership in the treasurer's office.
Well, that might make more sense anyway, to do a kind of a general retirement cleanup bill, as opposed to putting it in here. Any more questions about the VSERS? Yes.
I'm looking at the attachment B, Tim. So I'm noticing that insurance and the printing and binding are pretty significantly up, at least in terms of what the fiscal 23 budget might look like. I'm just, if you could talk about those two issues, if you will. So the insurance looks like it went up 62%, if I'm looking at it correctly.
Trying to find where you are.
Where are you on there, Brian?
Halfway down that page.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. I'll have to come back to you on this. These are typically sort of allocated costs. I thought you might have been referring to our health insurance, which would have.
No, it says non-employee related.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what that insurance is.
Right. I'm going to need to
Well,
come
it's
back
not going to hold
on
up
that.
the process.
Yeah.
Trust me.
And same with printing and
okay.
binding. I'll have those specific budget details here.
Okay.
But again, happy to go back to our folks.
No problem.
Okay.
Any other questions about VSERS? Okay. So let's jump. I see we have, I assume John Harris and Chris Doobie with us. Okay. So let's jump to the Teachers Retirement Board. Okay. And again, I'm, for your benefit, we'll do a quick introduction here of the committee so that you know who you're talking to, and then we'll jump into it. I'm Jeanette White from Windham County. I represent Windham County in the Senate.
I'm John Gannon. I represent Halifax, Whitingham, Wilmington, and Southern Vermont.
I'm Rob Leclerc. I represent Barrytown.
I'm Matt Kraus. I'm one of the gubernatorial appointees, and I live in Stowe.
Senator Brian Collmore representing the Rutland County folks.
And I'm Tracy DeLude. I'm the other gubernatorial appointee, and I'm also overseeing the boards and commissions for Governor Scott.
So what are the goal of this committee is that we've been charged for the last 3 years with going through all the boards and commissions and task force and working groups that exist in the state. And Tracy can tell you there are over 300 of them. And just looking at them to see, should they be repealed? Should they be maintained? And if they should be maintained, are there changes that could be made to make them more effective or to bring them up to date? So we just looked at the VSERS, and now we're going to look at the STIRS. We have Tim prepared the questionnaire for us. And I don't know, Tim, if you would like to jump in here or have.
Well, as any good employee, I'm going to defer to my board chair for any opening remarks that you'd like to make.
All right, good. So, John?
Well, I'll just say, after reading through the questionnaire, I think the questionnaire answers show that the VSERS board is integral in keeping the VSERS pension program running smoothly. I've been on the board many years, and it seems like our responsibility is growing each year more and more than it has in the past. So I'm very pleased to be a member of the board. I think we have a very good functioning board, and I will turn it over to Tim to answer specific questions.
Okay, are there specific questions, committee?
I just have one quick one. I understand what you say, that the board takes on additional duties and responsibilities. And for most lay people, it reaches a point where you go, that's it, I'm done. I can't handle that, too much work for me, too challenging, et cetera. So you said that they've grown in responsibilities and duties, et cetera. So I assume it hasn't reached the stage where people are going, no, I don't want to do it anymore, or it's too much, et cetera. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there have been a number of changes over the years that have made being a board member better in some respects. The retirement system, the office of the Treasurer's retirement system did a change. Boy, this was a bunch of years ago, where they used to have dedicated retirement specialists for each one of the pension programs. And they did a reorganization where all of the specialists now know all the different pension system requirements, or the rules of each of the three different pension programs. So the office has become very well run. It has an incredible staff, and so the support from Tim and his staff, it makes being a board member it's not daunting. And we've set up our meeting schedules. Zoom has certainly helped, so people aren't traveling great distances in order to get into Montpelier, although I do miss meeting in person. But I was saying the tasks that are facing the board, like the unfunded liability, those healthcare, those are the types of things we're spending more time on than we have in the past.
Thank you.
Rob?
Good morning, John. When you say the board is well functioning, I'm looking at it and I see that it's a lot of representatives of those that, stand to benefit from it going forward. But I think we just heard from Tom Blanca that the teacher's retirement is going somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 13 million a month in the hole. What is this board's role in helping address that issue?
Well, our role is to work along with VPIC in terms of addressing that issue. VPIC is responsible for the investment of the board. We're looking at the board level, we're looking at saving costs. And one example is moving the over 65s to a Medicare Advantage plan, which was a very large cost savings, both for the state, the member, and also bringing down the unfunded liability. So it's those types of actions that the board takes along with working with VPIC to address those concerns.
Feel that one change will make a substantial impact on the deficit spending every month?
I don't think there's one action that will address that. But yes, I think moves like this. We did another one. I'm forgetting again in the healthcare realm. There was the prescription drugs, the donut hole. We addressed that. That brought money back into the state. So as the landscape shifts, the board does its best, along with especially with the assistance of the Treasurer's Office, to address the pressures against the pension system.
Very good. Thank you.
Other.
Can I ask one, now that I brought up a question, I'm just curious. So you said you went to Medicare, is that accurate for the?
Medicare Advantage plan.
I haven't yet. Have you?
Yes.
Oh, you did?
Yes, this past year.
Okay, so I guess my question was this. What actually did that replace? Did that replace, I'm a former state employee, so I have access to the state's medical plan, okay, which I take advantage of. Did the teachers have access, retired teachers, did they have access to their medical plan and now they have something different?
Well, basically what we did, we have our medical plans through VHI, Vermont Education Health Initiative. And so as we were doing an RFP to re-up or to find possibly a new provider required in legislation. So during the RFP process, we also asked bidders to put in a plan for a Medicare Advantage program. Right. So during that process, to answer your question, the retirees were getting their health care through VHI and Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And in the RFP process, we then did the research for the Medicare Advantage plans. And so we then shifted to a Medicare Advantage plan that basically was exactly the same in terms of benefits that we had with Blue Cross and Blue Shield and VHI, and it lowered the premium. So it was a win-win, and actually gave additional benefits. So okay. It was a win all the way around.
Okay, I want to make sure it was apples to apples.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was a critical part for the board, that we didn't want to move away from that because of the protection that we had and the program that we had set up with VHI, which we've had for many, many years, and it has been well supported by retirees.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm just curious, is it the Blue Cross Blue Shield Advantage?
Yes.
Yeah. So Tim, remind me, retired teachers went to Medicare Advantage. Did retired state employees? Because they were over the pension task force, we talked about that. They have not.
They have not.
Okay, I had it turned around backwards.
And just a little background, the Visitors Board, with the assistance of the Treasurer's Office Retirement Division staff, we actually go out and we purchase the plan for our retired teacher population. In the state system, it's a little different. It's run through DHR, both the active and the retiree plans. So DHR is the ones that they select plans through the RFP processes. There's ongoing discussions currently about that for the state retirees, but at present, it is as it's always been.
Okay, I had it turned around in my head. I thought it was the state employees that went and not the.
So you're going to
And
give retired state employees like me a better plan. Is that the way I understand that?
well, I can tell you, I'm on, as a retiree of UVM, I'm on the Vermont Advantage, and I have not had any trouble with it at all, ever.
I just want to make sure my plan is going to get better. That's what I was asking him. I don't want something
It might change.
might change. Okay, then I guess we'll have
I mean-
that discussion.
I'll defer to our partners at DHR.
Yeah, okay.
So I've had a couple people contact me with concerns about that. So I don't know that I don't know. I guess it depends on who you are, whether you think it's better or not.
And when we did the change, our sort of number one priority was no diminution in service and coverage, right? It was maintain the status quo. The Medicare Advantage plans are closely regulated by Medicare, CMS, right? And there are some areas that are experienced by a small handful, not unimportant by any means, but a small handful of folks where there are some changes. We went through an exhaustive process of charting all of those changes, comparing, the lion's share of changes resulting in better service or better coverage, but a small number where, because of CMS regulations, we couldn't exactly match. We've developed an internal process. I'm actually moving on one today where we have an expedited triage system when we hear of that. So if you have a member, one of our teachers population that experiences that, I would ask you to please refer them to the retirement office, because it can be challenging to navigate any kind of system. And so we have an expedited process where we get all the people, we have sort of a dedicated email chain, make a decision and resolve it. It's not always going to be resolved, but 9 times out of 10 it will be.
Okay, thanks for that. I will.
Please do, yeah.
Okay, any more questions for the STRS? Okay, the Muni system. All right, Chris, would you like to say a few words here for us?
Sure. So first of all, I want to thank the board and the commission for inviting us to weigh in on this. I appreciate it. And for the record, Chris Doobie, I am the chair of the VMERS retirement system. And I'll just give you all just a heads up. I am on duty. So if you hear a lot of noise in the background, that means a call is coming in, and I truly apologize.
So what town are you sitting in?
So I work for Hartford.
Hartford, okay.
Yeah, down in Hartford. Been here for 30 years, so I'm an old timer. I'm getting close to retiring, so.
Okay.
I'll open up by saying that, as you know, the VMERS is truly separate from VSERS and VSTRS. It's all employer money. There's no state money overseeing this. I will say that our board, I feel, functions very well. It's equally represented by 2 active employee reps and 2 from the employer side, municipal employer side. I would say we work very good collaboratively to address issues. I think that the board does serve a purpose, and it needs to be maintained. That oversees the functions and the administrative duties of the plan. And I think at that point, if you have any specific questions, I'll try to answer to defer to Tim.
No, I will just say that on the pension task force that both Representative Gannon and I served on this summer, we had a member of the Muni system who was on the pension task force and was able to help us understand how that one worked. That was Corey Parent. He was appointed as a senator, but he is also was a municipal employee. So he was part of that system and helped us understand a lot of what was going on there. Any questions about?
Nope.
Three, they've done the best job.
Yeah, it's been, well, it's also a newer, that isn't the word.
74, I believe.
It's not a mature, it's less mature than the other retirement systems, so.
Young one.
It is. And I'll just add this in that we've had issues in the past, and, it's no big surprise, but I think that in the last 10, 12 years that we worked collaboratively with the employees and employees, understanding that, it's beneficial to work together to resolve these issues. And I want to just, go on the record of saying that I'm very happy of the work we do and the collaborative effort. And we, realize that we're working for a common good, and hopefully that keeps as we move forward. So.
And I think if I could emphasize that, I think both the chair and Treasurer Pierce deserve a lot of credit, along with the legislature, for the funding solution that Beamers has adopted by sort of stepping in equal employer and employee contribution increases. The most recent history has been to multi-year, 4-year plans of, quarter point increases in both. So I think kind of brings everyone's skin in the game. And I think that's a really good process. We're now in year 1 of the most recent 4-year path that the legislature addressed this past session.
Yeah, I think that was a very smart move. Any other questions for that? Well, what do you say, team here? Should we repeal these 3 boards?
I already wrote keep, it's too late.
Oh, did you write it in pen? Oh, okay, she wrote it in pen, keep, so I guess.
It's a motion, I suppose.
Do we want to take them? I think we should take them separately.
Yeah.
Okay, so which do you want to move first?
So I'll move that VSERS be maintained.
Okay,
Second.
discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Next, I would move that VSTERS also be maintained.
Second.
okay, favor?
Aye.
Aye. And lastly, VMERS also be retained.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. I wondered when you were gonna.
You want to get it in.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you so much. And keep up the good work.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah,
Thank you, folks.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks.
to lots of people.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Thanks. I think I'll see you later.
You'll be
today.
back, right?
We
Yeah.
have some other treasurers.
Yeah, you are.
I see you're on,
Afternoon, almost.
Yep.
yeah,
Two.
Pitch in there.
got a full day here, huh? Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Okay, what,
We're way ahead.
my
We've
goodness.
done great, though, up to this point.
Yeah.
So do we want to, while we're here, while we have some time, do we want to have a discussion on the handicap?
Yes.
So that we can,
I mean, yes, of course. It's a great idea, man.
remember, I have quite a slug.
Yes, you do. Harness store.
No longer memory.
Yes, his arm is still sore. Okay, I will start off the discussion by saying that while it sounds like everything is gone and decommissioning is over, they're not producing electricity, but there's still a lot of crap there, and there's still a lot to be done. Because it's in our backyard, we are all very nervous about that crap and about making sure that citizens are kept in in the process. And I will say that Bill Irwin from the Department of Health, and I can't think of who it is from DEC, but I know Bill Irwin has been, I don't know her, Patricia Capolini. But I know that Bill Irwin has been working on this issue for 20 years. And so I think for me, it's really important to keep it. And I would suggest that we perhaps go along with the 2030 year, which is 7 years, which is just 2 years longer than we normally do. That was given as the time when North Star will be done. I mean, they'll probably be done before, but that's their date.
What was the 2052 date?
2052 is when the license with nuclear, with the feds runs out.
Estimated to run out.
Estimated to run out, but we would have no control over that anyway, so.
So I think I prefaced what I asked when we had the witnesses here. But I'll say it again, it isn't in my backyard. It isn't necessarily on my radar screen because of that. So I'm sympathetic and can appreciate the two of you being in a little bit different, certainly geographical position than myself. I was just coming at it from, again, they four meetings a year, and I'm trying to put myself in a meeting and trying to say, okay, now what are we going to talk about today? Well, there's nothing really new. Okay, well, let's all go home then. And I don't know that happens. I also wonder why it takes 16 people to have this done, many of whom could probably do it independently of a panel if they so choose. Again, being sensitive to your position, I may be persuaded to join. The other issue for me is it's $35,000. It isn't like we're spending millions of dollars on this panel. So if it makes people feel better, I guess, down there, I guess I'm okay. That's where I am. But I was going to vote to do away with it initially.
Did she say the 35,000 is now coming from,
Their budget.
It's
I thought the company? Yeah, not the state.
Well, 21,000.
21,000.
1,000 comes from the state.
Okay.
Right.
That's the Department of Public Service. That's their estimated cost. Yeah.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
my term?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I was like-minded with the senator from Rutland, and then I felt that it would be appropriate to sunset them. I don't see that they're serving an active purpose other than information dissemination, which in itself is important. But because I recognize that it is important to people who live there and there is still some ongoing activity, I'll support it if we're inclined to put a sunset date where it's going to have to come back and be revisited, because I absolutely would not support being open-ended until 2052. I just don't see the role there. And like I had asked the question earlier on, even the state, our involvement, I think, is somewhat limited because it is got jurisdiction from the feds. So it just seems like there's an awful lot of time and effort being spent on something that we're going to have very little say or input to anyway. So if we can put in a reasonable sunset date, whether it's 2030 or the 5-year mark, that would help me.
So I just, I'm with you both as far as a sunset date, which is 7 years. I just want to make sure that it's written in such a fashion that the, if they choose not to act, the legislature chooses not to act, then it's gone. I mean, it's.
That's what a sunset is.
Yeah, I understand. Okay.
I did have one more comment. And I heard this from the commissioner in that, I don't know if it's appropriate and this is a forum, that we help define what this group's charge is. And that's that they're talking about I guess, the Vermont Yankee site and Vermont Yankee pertaining issues, not delving into national.
Yeah, I did hear that, but I also thought Emily's statement was compelling, that they had set up this other subcommittee to look at any of those issues, and before before it could be attributed to anybody, it had to have the vote of, and I feel that there is some appropriateness there. The state of Vermont and other states are looked to for input on lots of things, like when HUD did its, changed some of its programming around Section 8 and stuff. People were asked to make comments, and as groups of housing advocates and stuff, those comments were made. So I think it's appropriate to have input. You're not going to have any influence. You're not necessarily going to, you're just going to be making comments on it. And I think that they're good discussions to have at the local level, because those are the people that live with it every day. And so they might have comments to make to federal regulators about what it's like to live with this every day.
I'm curious, is it a unique situation in Vernon? In other words, does a nuclear power plant always locate next to a river?
They have to be by a water source, yes.
So in what sense is it a different situation than you might find in Michigan?
Well, what is it? It isn't. It's that every nuclear power plant that's been decommissioned or that is being decommissioned has an NDCAP. They all have them, and they're all ongoing. I think the one in Maine is the oldest one. What was the plant in Maine? Maine, huh? It wasn't Maine Energy. It was, but they, I think they're the oldest one, and they still have their NDCAP going, as far as I know. Yeah. So they all have citizens advisory groups.
Yeah. Okay.
When they're decommissioning. When they're in operation, they don't have citizen advisory groups because they're regulated by the PUC or the NRC. So.
And there are still states, obviously, that do generate nuclear.
Oh, there are still
Florida.
Many operating nuclear power plants.
We should have more.
Well, hopefully that isn't sort of what's going on with these meetings.
No, they don't weigh in whether we should have nuclear power or not. And some of us have very strong feelings about that, because we're gonna be living with the waste for the next 1,000 years in 10 miles from my house.
We'll just ship it to Mars.
No, but see, that's the challenge, is that because there's no national storage for spent nuclear fuel, it has to remain on site, which could potentially, if it's not done right, cause problems.
Yeah, no question.
There
was a move at one point to truck it all to Texas, wasn't there, or somewhere?
And then there was Yucca Mountain in Nevada. Yeah, there's been a lot of proposals,
but nobody wants it.
Billions of dollars spent.
Wasn't there a really preliminary discussion about reusing that site for like a second gen or whatever?
Well, it could be at some point, once it's totally decommissioned. And I think that's some of the conversation that goes on with the NDCAP, that because all the transmission lines and everything are there, it's a big flat area. It could be reused for solar.
And I think the spent fuel rods that are there, if I understand it correctly, would be the primary fuel source to be reused again for this second gen over the track.
I think that's really debatable, because there's a lot of issues with reusing. It boils it down into what's becomes nuclear bomb grade
plutonium,
and you don't necessarily want to do that. But anyway, but I mean, those are all questions that are up in the air, but it could be used for some kind of generation because all the transmission lines are there. So.
Well, I'll make, unless there's more discussion, I'll make the motion that we continue it, but with a sunset date of 2030. And then,
What month?
what month?
Well, if you're going to get a date,
How about June 10th?
I think that we don't put months on sunsets when we do them.
okay.
We
do.
We do put months?
We do.
Oh, we do. Oh, well, put it on then.
If it's a bill, I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
June 10th. I would put,
why June 10th?
July 4th.
just like what, because
Oh, serious, Representative.
we usually put on as a date,
Usually July 1st.
July 1st, the end of
Or
the,
January 1st.
Or January.
I was 20 days off.
I think January 1st.
okay. January 1st, 2030.
30. Second.
So that means in the 28, in the,
29th
they're
year,
going to have to
address the issue.
address the issue. Okay.
Second.
All in
Okay.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hope they have a good lunch.
Thank you. I got to buy him lunch.
I have the specials if anybody wants.
Are you kidding? He wants to go to Sarducci's.
Oh.
No.
Got an extra half an hour now.
Thank you. And I know
Still
that.
why I don't make those sorts of comments anymore.
No, we were online probably, so I shouldn't have said that, but
Right, some of us were lame.
I do appreciate that. I think we both do. I know that it seemed very tempting to just repeal it because
I know.
there is,
If I lived 10 miles away, I'd probably feel a little bit more urgent.
And
I have
I,
nuclear power plants on both sides of me.
You do?
yeah.
Yeah, there's Yankee Row in Massachusetts, which is
Oh.
right over the border, and then Vermont Yankee.
but they don't have any input on Yankee Row. It's just the Vermont Yankee.
Yeah, Row's in Massachusetts, but still, I mean,
Yeah, he lives with two of them.
yeah, nuclear waste is,
Part of this for me is making sure that the agency that has oversight over this is doing their job, and that's communicating to Vermonters and all those that need to be communicated with the information that they require. And I'm not sure that having a 16-member board is really needed to do that as well. It just seems like there's a lot of redundancy.
I think it keeps them on their toes.
Maybe, yep, maybe it does.
I think some of the members are actually from out of state, as I recall. I think some of them are appointed by Massachusetts.
Well, except they're all vacant. Because there should be, because it.
Should be 19.
Isn't that your job to
There
make sure that
should be
doesn't?
somebody from Massachusetts and somebody from New Hampshire, because Vermont Yankee is closer to New Hampshire than it is to me. It's right on the Connecticut River, and the Connecticut River, of course, is owned by New Hampshire.
Right.
So,
they might care.
and it's also closer to Massachusetts than to me. It's only about 4 miles from the state border.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
So are we on break and be back for the other work that we can and should do before?
We voted on all the others. We voted on everything up to this point.
So it looks like everything else this afternoon is going to require,
It's the treasurer and then
Again.
state, secretary of state.
yeah.
Okay.
What's, Tanya, is she going to be giving us an update?
Yes, because I think we misspoke at our last meeting about where she was with respect to creating a database.
We misspoke, did you say?
Yes.
Ah,
So I think she's going to clarify where they are, that they're ready to do something.
okay.
So she sent an email, I think, in the middle of our meeting last time we met. and
Right.
Clarified that we misstated where she was. So,
Yeah.
The level of preparedness.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
It'd be good to hear that because that is like one of the big projects that we have left to do.
Well, yeah, that was sort of one of the issues that was always hanging around out there. There was no clarity around. It's just
Yeah,
how
so we need to
big and
resolve
how
that.
expensive. Yeah.
And I think it's really good to have Tracy on here to make sure that
To
the
give some input.
and that the administration and that we're all working together.
Future goals.
Okay. Break for lunch,
Yeah, and so we'll be back at
1 o'clock.
1 PM. So we can go up there.